Afternoon, everyone. We're going to talk about some measurements that I think are important. And it's not to the level of like scripted turn one plays like Wakanda, Spirit of Wakanda, ASM, stealing a back hammer, or some weird first class thing. It's not meant to be some like super scripted turn one jank to get up on extracts. It's meant to be a tool in the arsenal that's good for both sides to know this. It's a little more interesting for convocation. I'm going to focus on it from the convocation side mainly because of the bump aspect of it. Um, but it's meant to just be something to keep in mind and something that can maybe help you in your games when you're deploying. And what I like to think of it as is there are, you know, there's only so many actions you get to take in a game with a particular model, right? Most games are going 4 to 5 rounds, 3 if it's super fast scoring. And if you really break it down to what your models get to do, like you want to maximize the amount of things you get done in the least amount of actions. And so I think there are some distances that are good to know. Um, and it's some of them will be like super obvious, but it kind of sets up the next talking points. But I think these ideas are just good to know because you can kind of deploy in a way that both you can react to what your opponent is doing and also understand, potentially how to punish it. I'm not really sure how I would best explain it, but let's just kind of start with, I think Senators is the one that I feel the most comfortable doing some of this stuff on. And I find Senators quite interesting to play, mainly because, there's 6 points in the middle. You kind of have to go in there to get them. You can't just walk up and walk away. There are models that can grab one and kind of scoot away with their places and whatnot. But for the most part, it kind of forces a little bit in the middle. And I like that. And so some distances that I want to kind of talk about when it comes to Senators is, the first one is medium-based medium movers are really good, or at least I like them on Senators, assuming they have a nice range attack. So one thing to note is a medium-based medium mover can get to a center in one move. So I think if you go by base size, large bases can't get there with a small move, so they need to be bigger. So like a Rhino or a MODOK can't get to one. Anyone with a bigger base can easily get there. A medium base medium move can get to one in one move. Anything smaller you can't. And a small base needs to be a long mover to get to one. Sometimes it's important, sometimes it isn't, right? If you're a long mover with a gun, great. You can get there in one move and get away and shoot somebody. But like Zemo's a good example of, if this is where the scroll is. Scrolls, it matters more because you scrolls, you pick it up, you get pushed, you can walk to where you want. In Senators, like if Zemo picks this up in one move, does it really matter? If he's going to pick it up, like there's nowhere he can get to that a medium-based medium mover can't get to in 2 moves. And if you're not in range to attack, let's just say you're Zemo and you only have range 2, and you're probably only looking at maybe within one move like an area like out here. Unless somebody walks across and like stands here in the middle, you're probably not getting an attack anyway, so it's not as important. But I think a lot of the game, metagame, whatever, like saying that, in Senators is it's a lot more steal focused now. And I don't even want to call it steal. You're trading extracts across the map. So like there's a lot of games where you'll take the enemy one and they'll come take yours. And it might seem scary, but I think it's important to remember, what has to be done on their side, right? Like, if this is deployment, and this is strange, right? If they take my Senator, range 3 doesn't get to them. Range 4 doesn't get to them if they're back here. So unless you have a range 5 gun, or maybe, no, I don't even think a bigger base works. Unless you're range 5, like, you have to move to attack them. So there are, like, deceptions and stuff. Like, this is not a perfect, like, I'm not going to do a catch-all. Like, especially, hell, my convocation can kidnap people with teleports or Ultron or whatever. So there's definitely ways for people to pull you back in. But depending on what they have available, like, it's not that bad to go up and grab theirs. You force something of them to say, are you really going to attack me once and then not pick up the center? Because unless you one-shot me, you're not getting the center. And assuming the model is maybe tankier, maybe it's like a lizard or an Ultron or something. Um, it's I mean it's a risk they have to take. So a lot of times people will just walk back to yours. And so depending on what you have, you can set up threats and whatnot to kind of account for that. And maybe you're okay with trading because you want to fight more instead of just being safe. So just some important measurements that I like to always, if you deploy between like strange or medium base mover between the two of them, like directly down the center, you can get to both of them in one move. Which is, and strange is really nice for it for two reasons, and we'll go into him in a second. But it's just nice to be able to say, all right, because let's just say, for example, you put your strange here, and you say, I'm going to go for this one. And they dive this one. Well, now you have to walk strange twice to get to another one. But if you would have put him here, and they go dive this one, you can say, all right, I know strange can make it to this one, pick it up, and now attack this guy who's standing on this one. So I think it's a lot of times a very good idea to put people in between both. If you have a medium base mover to kind of threaten both, and it depends on your team and whatnot. So that's a big one. I think one with strange that I like a lot is, let's reset these tokens just because they moved. Like one thing to consider is, and I like to set this up a lot, and it can be hard on centers. This is where I talk about it's not scripted. It's very reactive to what the enemy's doing as well. And I think there's a big thing with MCP. Again, the whole scripting of turn one plays with like weird Wakanda shit. It is what it is, and it's not my favorite thing in the world, even though I don't do anything to that level. I rather have a setup in a way that I can make my team doesn't work that way. I don't have like a bunch of crap that I can do to set up a steal of a back D. So I like to set up in a way that I have options and can threaten things that people do, and depending on how the couple first turn actions go, get the most out of it. And to be honest, I think a lot of people, if they don't expect you to do something crazy, it's not even crazy. If they don't expect you to do something, they might set up in a way that they can't punish it, right? So sometimes there'll be like, a side scroll or a side hammer, and I don't know, they're gonna go pick up this one. Maybe they don't have somebody to threaten this one. I don't know. I've just seen times where like they just accept that like you're going to pick up this hammer. Let's say you have eyes on a prize person, and they think you're going to pick it up and walk away, so they don't even put somebody across from it. And then now you could say, I'm just going to go pick it up normally, and if it's a D map, you just go stand on it. So reacting to what people are doing and seeing, if they can punish your little plays and what they can do about it. So one thing with Strange I wanted to comment on is, if you, put him in the middle and you give him a power with Wong, he now can get to either one. But I think the big thing, the other note-wise, is if you just walk up with a medium mover, I'll put the other Strange there. Right, let's just say you're head on, right? Because sometimes you do it. I mean, it depends on terrain and stuff. If you're just head on, did I took it off? Yeah, right. You can pick it up, but range 3 doesn't get to the back. You can tell this is an inch off. So if somebody knows what they're doing and they want to pick up this senator, not everybody does it. They might pick it up, 1 inch behind range 1, and now all of a sudden you're out of range. But with Strange, because he can place, you can do plays where like you come at him, and now all of a sudden you can reach anybody on that senator, right? Even if he's range 3. And so you don't have any power because you would have had to give him power with Wong. But assuming that the target is, I say this, and then I will also say that I have done it to like Spectacular Spider-Man and not done a damage. But there's a very good chance you can double tap the model with the senator across from you and get 1 power to pick up the one in front of you. That is a risk I am more than happy to take against 95% of models out there. Just get some early damage, and essentially you're gaining a lot for doing that, right? So that's something to keep in note. So if you're against somebody that's a medium base mover with range 3, knowing that if you pick up on the backside, you can't be attacked by them just walking medium move. But also knowing that if you're running strange, you can scalpel yourself up and get within range to attack them. So that's a big one. Another thing I like with Convocation in Senators, if you're on like a D map, so maybe it's Extremist Senators like this, and you're playing, I will just say 19. One thing to note is that if you take the opponent's Senator and you are here, you can, I should have taken the other Ultron away, you can bump to the D. So a lot of things that can be iffy with Senators and D shapes is getting, if you think about it from maybe my perspective, you have 3 tokens and potential for 3 extremists to get on. So, okay, somebody like Toad here is really good because Toad, and one reason I like Toad in rosters with Senators is Toad can place here, walk here, and then pick up this Senator so he can control the D and pick up the Senator without any problem. So that's a really strong Toad play. It's basically 2 for 1. You're getting the back point sitter and you're getting the Senator on a person you don't mind sitting with it. So I'm all about that. I think it's a strong play. You can do it with Wong if you want to. You can take Eyes on the Prize, walk up Wong, meditate, and then take something in. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I've done it before. It's a nice option to have. Wong is probably not going to be able... He can rotate without center. He can't rotate left to right. And you just kind of accept that he's back there, and so it could be dove. It also kind of sucks because it takes away, your big boys, like giving Strange that power to be able to teleport up and threaten somebody who picks one up is pretty good. And so maybe that is a reason not to do Wong on the back end or on the first activation. It might seem very enticing to go with Wong, give Strange a power, and then do that, have that play set up. But sometimes you might want to wait a turn or two to see what the enemy's doing and maybe be able to counter it by giving it to somebody else, potentially. Because you can also give it to Ultron, who can do it. I don't know if this makes it. Nope, he doesn't make it. So it doesn't... Ooh, I didn't know that did that. Spacebar does that. Unfortunately, a small base doesn't get there. But a medium base does. So again, if you have a Lizard or an Ultron... and Ultron grunts are even another kind of thing too, where you can kind of mess with people's. I think it works. Let's see. I think if they were to go head on and try to walk to it, right? Can you put the grunts in a way? I guess this is going to be harder to do it like this. Let's just see if you can put the grunts in a way. How far can the grunts get? I think they can get pretty far. If you were to put the grunts right in front of one. Okay, so you can definitely move them far enough to block an inch straight up. So they get just over the template, so let's just say they're halfway. I know it's hard to do it when I'm out from the other side. Let's just say it's there. Can you stop it? It's hard. You might be able to just completely stop them from getting there in one move. And so that's another play too that's interesting. If they're set up to do this kind of move where they want to go up and, attack, you can kind of annoy them by doing this. Now, they might just walk twice. They might kill you with somebody else and then go up there. So it's not a perfect plan, but, sometimes being annoying and doing stuff with the drones can be nice. But back to what I was saying with Ultron or Lizard. If you're on a D map and you have Lizard or Ultron, it's fairly safe to stand here. I think you'd have... Now, the one thing to note is you need to be within 4 inches of the console. So here to here has to be 4 inches. So this where you won't make it. You won't make it within 1 if you do that. So you have to make sure within 4 if you really want to do it. You can... It's kind of not easy to measure, but I guess you could bend this. A long one that's bent is range 4, so... If you kind of just place it to the side, you'll know you'll make it. So there, I'll know if I go basically angled straight towards it and I place within 1, I'll make it there. And so what this kind of gives you is this interesting, kind of going back to what I was saying before. You have 3 things you want to pick up, and you're going to get the back one with somebody, and then you could potentially try to mess with the Ds. So if you're only 5 wide, how do you do this? You might pick up 3, and then have 2 people on one side, right? If you have Toad, okay, you can do this in one move, and then you have the other 3 people to do what they want to do. It's a little bit more annoying, like I said, with Wong, because you might want to set up plays with Strange, and I guess if you have Toad, you could do it as well. Oh, I do want to see one thing. I don't think Toad can do both from the side. No. So Toad could like double walk here, pick this one up, and then say if they attack you, you get to bump on it. Just something to note. It's always good to understand that he can do that. He can also just pick up enemy ones and like safely like here and do the same thing. Like Toad could walk here and say, screw you, I'm going to take this one, and if you hit me, I'm going to bump to this. And so it gives the enemy kind of a conundrum. We talked about it before. Not only do they have to do the same thing you do, they have to get there and pick these up. Like they don't have, like, they're not going to go down 1,000,000 points by not picking up any senators. So either they're going to double walk to yours, and if you do the Strange play, like he can teleport up and just bombard somebody who's on one of your own senators, or they try to attack whoever's here, and if it's Ultron, it's usually a bad idea. And so then Ultron bumps back, and now all of a sudden you grab their senator, right? You grab their senator, you got on the point, and maybe even heal if it's Extremis next turn. So like, it's like double. It's like pretty bad, like, to do that. But you have to know to set it up. You have to know that you can bump there. You have to know the ranges. You have to know to go here. I think it's very good with Lizard to do it as well. Lizard's probably one of the best ones to do it for. He's tanky. He has armor. He's a 3 threat. He doesn't mind the power for doing throws later. And he doesn't mind chilling on the side with a senator. He can displace people. So yeah, I mean, it's another great spot for Lizard if you're playing him here. Depending on the point level. Some other things I'd like to note is, so one, Strange is probably an exception, and so I don't, maybe not an exception, but, you know, there's times where I give Strange a power, like the 4, and then I teleport Ultron, and you know, it's something that I used to do a lot more, and I'm not tired, but I don't do it as much anymore. If you think about it like this, so if Ultron wants to come to the middle, let's just say it's not a D shape. So let's pick a different shape. Let's just open my roster and get my scoundrels out. So we'll take this out. Where's scoundrels? Right. Let's just put a scoundrels out there. Right. If it's scoundrels, senators, okay, sure. This is a nice one to note that, like, you can, in one move, technically get between both of them. This one's a little harder to pull off, I think. Is it hard? Maybe it's not. You can do it, though. You can do it so, like, if you can do this angle and like that, I think you make it. Let's just see how we can do it. Maybe we have to go a little bit this way. Yeah, you could walk like there. Not letting me as well as I wanted to be. You could walk there. Yeah, it's easy on a medium base. If you walk like right there, you can pick it up and be on the thing, which is nice. You can do it in 2 moves, and a medium base can do it as well, where there's enough. The gap here is small enough to. You can see how it's like 3 point something inches. So the this base is big enough, just big enough to go between both. If you were to do like. If you were to pick up the center on this side, right, you would be just in range. So that's good to know, too, that you can get in that gap. But the nice part about, like, a Strange, for example, is, 1, he has 3 power. So if he does this, he can do his range 5 to a lot of things on the board, including somebody sitting on their back F. Or, if depending on where they are, he can attack them. So it's nice for Strange, medium-based movers to know that, depending what you want to do. But going back to my point with Ultron is, sometimes I used to teleport him up, which is not bad, but at the end of the day, like, I want to be on this point right here, and so I'm always going to walk up, like, to here. And so, sure, Ultron gets to attack. Alright, Ultron will get to attack at some point. And so, essentially, I've paid 4 power for an Ultron attack. And I think you have to ask yourself, is that worth it? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. is it just better to double walk up Ultron? It also depends on the timing of it. Like, I guess I feel better about Strange teleporting himself and attacking because he's getting power for next turn. Again, not a bad play, but just something to keep in mind. But one reason I like big bases, like when it comes to Rhino and MODOK, for example, is not only should have done that. Not only is it great for just bumping in general, because the bigger your base, the bigger your bump, and so if you have the room, a large base can bump out of any range 2 attack. So maybe a anti-combo trick would be if you're ever like attacking Strange and you have range 2 and you're trying to double tap him, you should go base to base with him so that when he bumps away, he's still within range 2. Whereas if you even leave just the smallest gap, right? Just like that. Because people do it all the time. They're just like, I put him there. You leave the smallest gap and all of a sudden he's out of range. Big bases, you can't do anything about it. Because their base is longer. Their base +1 is longer than range 2, so they'll be out of it. And in fact, depending on, if you hit them at max range 2 and you have range 3, their thing is longer than 3 inches, so you won't even be within range 3 afterwards. So just good stuff to know there. But one thing I was kind of alluding to or getting at is with somebody like MODOK, right? So essentially, we said we're going to pay 4 power for 1 move of Ultron, right? So he gets an attack. So you're basically getting an attack, but you're basically trading a medium move for a place for 4 power. Would you pay 4 power for a medium move? Like, that's essentially what you're getting out of Ultron, because he has it's an inch of a move, but it doesn't get you anywhere. I think that's the point I'm trying to make is, like, when Strange teleports himself onto a Senator, it's not just, like, he can walk there and get there. So you're not just trading a move for 4 power, or an attack in that case for 4 power. You're getting that extra inch allows you to attack somebody on their Senator easily unless they walk up here. So that's something, and it kind of pays for itself on Strange. I think that's the thing I like the most. But something with like large bases to note is if, not only is MODOK only a small mover, right? But it's 2 things. One, 3 inches for MODOK is a long way, right? Like, if you think about Rhino being, similar, Rhino is the same, right? Rhino walking twice gets him here. MODOK placing gets him here. It's a couple inches off, but it's still up the board. And the big thing is it gets him on the center point. So if it's demons, if it's gamma, if it's like late in the turn, if you teleport MODOK up the board, you basically give him 2 moves, right? Because if you make the assumption that you're not going to walk across the map, you're just going to walk to like here, you've basically allowed MODOK to get where he wants to go, which is the center point potentially. It depends on the map. Get where he wants to go. Attack twice, like maybe. Hold the point. All for 4 power? For 4 power, he gets to go there and attack twice. You're paying 4 power for 2 attacks in that case. As opposed to 4 power for 1 attack on MODOK, or on Ultron. And you can test them. So, like, that's one of those, when you really get into the thought process of how many actions do I have, where can I get to, I think there's a real value in knowing things like that and having things that can account for it, like big bases. It's kind of like with Rhino, I sometimes hate in Scoundrels, like, he can't get to the back Scoundrel, right? He can't get there. But depending on how the game's going to go, like, sometimes you might just want to walk, like, to the middle, guarantee that you get it with, like, 2 people, and maybe give up on your back Scoundrel and say, I'm not going to win the game by sitting Rhino back here and having a turn 2 where I have to walk and go. So I think that's something that, and it depends on where your other models are too. It's not the perfect crime, but I think it's something to note when playing and having a game plan is saying, listen, it's okay if somebody doesn't sit here, turn 1, depending on your team. It's okay. You don't auto lose the game being down a point. Like, if you identify, like, I need to kill some people, you might just walk up to the middle because it might get you a point anyway, right? Two people standing here might get you a point that you would have got if you were standing back here and the enemy tied this one, right? So let's just say Taskmaster is the enemy in this case. Taskmaster is the enemy. You walk two people here. Like, this situation is the same points as this situation, right? So depending on it, like, just be up here and be ready to go and get in their face. So that's one thing I want to talk about, like knowing ranges that like a big base getting teleported up will get on the center. It's better for like a Modok than maybe a Rhino, because if Rhino got up there and he started attacking, he'd be somewhere else. But it's also not bad on Rhino too. I mean, there's been times where I've just, Rhino's been somewhere and I just say, I'm going to just teleport him up the board. Kind of similar to what I was saying. You teleport him up the board. All right. You get to go move, or maybe depending on where the enemy is, you place, and then you attack, and now all of a sudden you're on their back, ready to go for next turn. And I think there's a level, especially with maybe Convocation and maybe with the particular models I bring, where getting attacked is okay. It's okay to be attacked. Like, if they have to attack you, they have to give you power. And giving you power potentially does way more damage to them in the long run than it does to you. And the fact that you have bump and like aggressive leads to just situations that they don't want to deal with. If you double walk Rhino to the middle, and he can be attacked, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna walk here and throw a shield at him or some stupid shit. You can say, all right, well, not only am I gonna get a bunch of power, I'm going to walk here and I'm going to bump onto the point. And now all of a sudden you're on their back point. And all you did was walk to the middle. And you might be on 3 power. And sure, maybe they'll kill you. And I think that's one thing I also like with like aggressive stealers like Rhino and Voodoo. If you see me play my 20 a lot, which is, I guess it would be this, Voodoo Wong. This and Voodoo Wong. I'll pick up extracts on Rhino a lot. And I'll pick them up on Voodoo a decent bit. And it's not because, it's just kind of the nature of the beast with some of the way I play my turn 1. Wong usually gives the power to Strange. Strange might want to go and be aggressive or do something. And one of the reasons is if Rhino has something, like, they might need to take it from him. And if they need to take it from him, they might need to kill him. And if they kill him and he wakes back up, he gets to rob it back if he wants. Same with Voodoo. Like, you can drop it for other people. You can drop it, they might just kill you and then you steal it back. Like, it's not the end of the world to pick up something on somebody that steals, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. And the more aggressive you are, depending on the enemy, it's not, you don't just walk into the middle of a meat grinder all the time. Sometimes making them do stuff is good with bumps and aggressive and all these other, defensive things, whether it's Modok. I mean, sometimes I like Strange to get hit, to get a little power going and play on the edge, like the edge of, ranges. And so setting up bumps is really nice. I think that's also very important with some moves. I need to get better about it. But, being able to bump out of range, being able to bump into range, being able to bump on points. Sometimes you have like an Ultron sitting here for whatever reason, and you're basically just saying, all right, if he ever gets hit, I'm going to get to one of the points. And sometimes he never gets hit. And so sometimes I don't intentionally move him, and I just sit him there and say, all right, if you ever hit him, I'm going to move. And that's one thing like Modok can play a lot of places in, and the more I play with Modok, the more I'm like kind of learning things would be, not only can you sacrifice Modok onto the grunts, which is always going to be annoying for the enemy, but you can sacrifice on to Rhino. You can sacrifice onto reverse bodyguard or whatever you want to call it. He can bodyguard onto these guys, and if it's like not the best attack, right? I don't play Modok on this map, but let's just assume it was something like this. And then somebody comes up and says, I'm going to attack Modok because he's squishy, whatever. In this particular instance, right, if this guy attacked Modok, you could say, I'm sacking it to him. Not only do you give it to somebody who has DR1, but he's now in cover because it's not what it was before. If he does do a damage, all of a sudden Rhino could aggressive, like, wherever and bump. You know what I mean? Like, if he really wanted. Rhino can get to that point just from that attack. He could aggressive and go up. So I think like Rhino is a great person to sack onto as well. With like I do that a lot sometimes with Strange. Is okay. I don't want Strange to be hit. Rhino getting hit has a big advantage. It's not just like in a lot of the sack world. It's just please Wong take the hit so that I don't die. I think there are aggressive air quote sacks where you're saying I don't want Strange to die. Rhino, you take the hit. Okay, you got 2 damage on you. Great. Not only do you get 2 damage, you get 3 power. DR's 1, whatever. You now get to bump an aggressive to a spot that the enemy might not think about. My general, I've said this in other videos, and I'll kind of say it again. One thing I love about Convocation is there are a lot of reactive / situations you can put your opponent in that make it very difficult for them. It's not when I played my Cabal, which was a good roster. It was very like it's I don't want to say straightforward because there's nuance in all MCP and like playing people with like attack triggers that move them and stuff. There's some nuance to it. It's not just everybody sitting on their back line shooting with you range 4 and nothing happening. But I think there's a layer that some teams get you. I think some teams gut check you turn 0. Teams like Wakanda do all their bullshit early, try to get up high, whatever. I don't know. I don't have much commentary for them, and that's fine. It's not my style. But teams that like make you think for the actions that are happening in the middle of the game more so. There's always the normal back and forth, who to days, give priority, blah blah blah. I think one thing that has gravitated me towards Sam in the beginning, Convocation now, is this idea that you are getting something extra for the enemy doing something they want to do. And they have to account for it. And sure, maybe Sam's leadership is the same way. Like, oh shit, if you kill this guy, I'm going to get to heal with Hulk, move him, and get rid of Stagger, whatnot. I think having those layers, sacrifice, reverse bodyguards, aggressive, bumps, people that can teleport and move people, like generally speaking, steals. I think there's layers and layers, and the more you put on your opponent, the harder it is to play against it. And listen, I don't forget bumps anymore. I used to forget bumps. There's always things I can do better. I am not going to sit here and tell you I am a masterful Convocation web. I make this web that's impossible to penetrate. I think there is a layer of the game and a layer of playing Convocation that you can do that and really put the hurt on enemies. I think there's 2 types of layers. I think you can I think there's a layer where you can just say, all right, these are just generally good moves and there's not a lot the enemy can do about it. And I think there's like another layer where you can say, all right, like you can take advantage of things the enemy might make a mistake on. In a perfect world, I'll put it this way. I don't know the answer to this, but in a infinite vast, like we are superhumans. Okay, a better example. When you're playing chess, right? And I'm not a good chess player, but when you're playing a computer engine, they are just too good to be tricked by anything, right? And so, but if you're not a grandmaster, you get tricked by stuff all the time. There's reasons grandmasters can beat people with like out their queens and stuff like that because they just know the tricks. And so, sure, in a perfect supercomputer world, Convocation probably might be. I don't know. It might even be super good because there's all these super cool bump and like placement plays you can do that like are better than what the enemy can do to counter it. And at the same time, I think it gives you this layer of, hey, I'm going to put stuff out there. If they don't know something, I can take advantage of it. I like it. I don't love that aspect of it. Because there's times where people do things to me, and I'm like, hey, if they just would have known that they base-to-base Strange, or I place within one on this exact side where I can't bump out of range of his next attack, and sometimes they don't put it in the right place and you bump and you're out of range, you're just like, shit, that feels good, but also feels bad. It feels bad a little bit because, throughout games of MCP, people make mistakes. I think because I'm on the other side and I know, like, oh, you should base him here so that he can't get out of the second attack. To me, like, knowing that they could have done it better kind of makes me feel a little uneasy because I'm like, man, was it really, especially if I misplayed something, gave them that chance to, like, do the best thing and they don't do it. Obviously, if I set it up in a way that it doesn't matter, I feel good. But I think, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. I think throwing it more cognitive load on your opponents, if you feel like you can handle the scrum, is good. And so I like to play MCP in a way that is much more in your face than not a lot of people, but then some of the top players want to play. I think some of the top players, I'm just saying it out. They want to grab their little lead with their jank and they want to get up and they want to sit there. And they want to force you to come to them. And I wish I could turn the key to that direction when is needed. Sometimes I do it like later in the game, like, oh, I'm going to win, I'm just going to run back. But I think I don't do it enough. Like, if I step on the gas, like, I'll step on the gas. Like, I'll do shit to, like, score even more out. And I think that's kind of a... So I'll talk about this in another video where it's more about getting better. But I'll just make my comment now. I am used to having to win by a lot, where, like, winning 16-5 matters rather than winning 16-15. It does not matter in MCP. I don't care about that tiebreaker. So to me, because I have that mindset from other games, and I'll go deeper into it in another video, I think it actually hurts me as an MCP player because I constantly push for those, like, I'm going to fucking destroy you, even though I could just take the safe play. And I do it sometimes. There's some games you'll definitely see me where I'm like, oh, I'm up 10-5. All I have to do is run to this side of the board, and they have to try to get me, and I'll just teleport them away with Strange. I think sometimes I get, like, I see blood in the water, and I'm like, I'm gonna go kill him. And maybe it's a little unsafe, and it feels a little uneasy at the end of it. But like I said, this video was about some measurements, about some things to get note for. Go to a mat. If you have a marked mat, which is good, or go to the TTS. Just set up some things and get used to seeing something. I think, I'm pretty sure, let's just do it real quick because I want to see if it's true. I think it is. Let's look for paranoia. Oh, shit, I moved them all around. There, I got it. First try. I'm pretty sure on paranoia that a medium base, medium mover can't get between both of them and be on the point. No, he's too far. But can a large base? Yes. So, like, that's an interesting measurement to know. If you ever play Paranoia Scoundrels, you can get this. You can double walk a Rhino or a Modok and, like, 2-for-1 it and count as being back there. Which is good to know. Like, it even more so in Convocation, it keeps you safe because not only are you on here, but if they're really going to try to punish you, you're in cover, and if you take a damage, you just bump back on the point and you don't care anymore. Taking 1 damage, you're not going to complain about. So, like, come in here, look at some map layouts, think about some turn. I want you guys to think about turn 1 stuff that isn't a static plan to jankily do something. I want you to think about where can you place models to threaten multiple things. Think about what the enemy's going to do. Look at their deployment and say, all right, I'm going to put Taskmaster out here to maybe run and go get this side hammer. I'll see. I have priority, right? I'll see what they're going to do. I'll put him here just to know. He doesn't have to go there, but I know a double base medium move will get me here if I want it, or I can go to the middle depending on the map. And then if they know you have priority and they don't put somebody over there, you don't go. You go maybe the other side. Or let's say they only put one model across from you and you say, I can take that. You go take it, right? Give yourself options and be ready to be adaptable. And don't be afraid to, I don't know, go aggressive and go kill them with your bumps. And bump forward, people, not backwards. Thanks for listening.